up a dive. Feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airwaves, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, so I remember I share and subscribe. Join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories are talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, the secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries remain.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Spectrum. I am your host, Barnaby Jones. Today, we are pre-recorded here on the Untold Radio Network. So if you guys are leaving comments or questions and we might not be answering them, that's why. We are recorded today. So coming up, guys, from Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, if you guys want to come out and see us in person, we are going to be at the Midwest Meta Paracon in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. It is a great big 3-day event with a bunch of famous TV personalities such as Ronnie LeBlanc, Jason, and Sherry from Ghost Hunters, and whole bunch of people. It's going to be a really great event. I can't even list them all because I can't think of them all off the top of my head, but it's going to be in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Head on over and check that out. Also, guys, coming up May 9th, 10th, and 11th is Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Convention in Appleton, Wisconsin. Another 3-day event as well. Friday night kicks off the festivities with a VIP meet and greet dinner and Bigfoot Expedition night hike. Saturday is the convention proper with all of our speakers, presenters, vendors, psychic gallery reading, and the premiere of the brand new Bigfoot in Wisconsin documentary. And Sunday is the paranormal investigations. So 3 days of all kinds of cool stuff. If you're bummed you're not in Wisconsin, can't make it out, you can always get a virtual ticket. If you guys are anywhere in the world, even if you can't make it live, you can stream it at your convenience and listen to all of our speakers at this event. And for the first month after the event is done, you can also stream the documentary that will be premiered at this event too. So you won't even miss out on that. And then, guys, June 7th, we head down to the Chicago Paranormal Convention in Chicago, Illinois. And September 19th and 20th, I will be at ChillCon in Gaze, Illinois as well. A lot of cool stuff. Also, we have some I have some library presentations as well. Head on over to wisconsincaps.com, click on the public events page, and you can find it all there. If you want to show your support for all things here on the Untold Radio Network, here's how.
Hey, Untold Radio Network fans. Want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
All right, guys, as I said, today's episode is pre-recorded, but my guest today is J. Allen Cross. He is a practicing witch of Mexican, Native American, and European descent, whose craft was shaped by his Catholic... I knew I was going to mess this up as soon as I read this. His Catholic upbringing and Mexican family culture. He is a paranormal investigator, psychic medium, and interfaith minister. He spends his time writing informative books on spirituality, magic, and enjoying time with his family in his home state of Oregon. His latest book, The Witch's Guide to Paranormal, is out now, and he joins us here in studio. Please welcome J. Allen Cross. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, the pleasure is mine, man. I'm looking forward to having a chat with you here. So we got to start with the basic questions, as you know. This is what I got to ask out of all the mediums that come on my show. A couple things. So we're going to get into this here. How did you first learn about your abilities? When did they start manifesting? And did you know that you had this gift?
So my story tends to be a little bit unusual because it's very common to hear this idea of like, oh, like ever since I was a baby or like as soon as I could talk, I was talking about, grandma was visiting or whatever. And I wasn't necessarily like that. I was always fairly in tune. I was kind of one of those kids that you're not super surprised later to find out. But mine hit me like a freight train when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I went through something that I refer to as my download. So what happened was for about 7 nights, maybe 10 nights in a row, I suffered from really intense migraines, just awful, splitting headaches. And I don't remember a lot from that time other than kind of lying on our living room floor and my parents trying to give me those like grape chewable Tylenol. So nothing was working. And I just remember just having these headaches really, really badly. And suddenly they stopped. And after that, I began to have really vivid dreams. And later I would either see the place in my dream that I hadn't been to before, or meet somebody that was in my dream that I hadn't met before, or usually it was locations or events. So like, for instance, there was one time where I had this whole really drawn out dream and woke up the next morning and it was a news story on TV. So that's when I started to kind of go, okay, something's up here. And I told my mom, and my mom's very open-minded. And so she was kind of like, okay. Like I told her straight up, I was like, I think I might be psychic. Like I'm having these dreams and they're coming true. And there was no way I would have known about this. And so I told her, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that I'm psychic. And she was like, okay. Like she didn't dissuade me from it. She didn't totally know what to do with it at the moment. But she was like, all right, yeah, cool. And the next morning she came back with a magazine clipping, and this will date me a little bit, but it was an article about a show that was about to come out called Medium.
Okay.
And it was all about this woman named Alison Dubois. And that's what the article was about the real Alison Dubois and her work with law enforcement as a psychic and what she was doing to help, catch bad guys and solve cases and things like that. And she gave me this article and was like, look, there are people like you out there. She has dreams too, and she's using it to help people and do good things. And so it instilled in me from a very young age an idea that I had a duty to do something with this and not just be psychic, like I had to help with it. And then the dead people came later, a few years later, when I made the mistake of being like, I remember I said something along the lines of like, oh, well, I'm glad I'm one of those psychics that just has dreams and I don't, see dead people or anything like that. And then because spirit has a sense of humor, the dead people showed up pretty much directly after that. So
yeah, that makes sense. So my next question then is, I know each medium's sensitive is different. So I would like to know, when you communicate with spirit, how does spirit manifest itself for you? Do you see it in your head? Do you see it externally? Do you just hear voices? How does that work for you?
So for me, it comes through several faculties depending on what kind of information I'm picking up. So the type of psychic that I am is I am what they refer to as a post-cognitive clairvoyant psychic medium. So what that means is if I'm picking up on psychic vibrations, they're often from the past, which is unusual because I started off as a precognitive dreamer, and the dreams stopped pretty much at the same time that the dead people showed up. And instead, I began picking up things that had happened in places or things, or like if I was to be given an object, I could tell you like kind of where it came from, things like that. So it was all very kind of past oriented, which actually helps a lot in paranormal investigation, as it turns out. But then the actual mediumship portion of it comes through in a few different ways. So I'll see it mostly in my head. Sometimes I'll have an outward with like my physical vision perception. I will occasionally have something with that, but that's pretty rare for me. Mostly it's in my head. And the way I kind of describe it is like, if you were trying to decorate your living room and you're like, okay, where am I going to put this poster? Where am I going to hang this photo? And you're looking at your walls and you're kind of like picturing it there on that wall and kind of being like, okay, like maybe that works there. And then you kind of picture it over there. That's kind of how it looks, where you can see it there, but it's kind of being projected from inside your head. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's how I often see them. Other information will come through like as sounds, or a lot of the time it comes through as feeling, which is a very odd thing to try to explain, because I'll have a spirit with me that I'm trying to describe. A bit, well, they feel female, they feel roughly in their mid-40s, they feel blonde, and they're like, what does blonde feel like? And I'm like, I have no idea. It's just a sense that I'm getting. So it comes through as kind of a feeling for a lot of it.
Okay. Do you get like I have two mediums, or I have a few mediums on my team as well, and one of them seems to get like feelings in their body. Like if the person had like a heart attack or something, they'll get chest pain or something like that. So do you have that kind of go along with your feelings as well?
Yes. And it can be startling, especially in the arena of paranormal investigation, because places are haunted for reasons. And so if I'm picking up information either psychically that something that happened in the space, or if a spirit is trying to communicate it with me, I will experience it physically. So I've been walking around a haunted house and come around a corner and suddenly I've been shot. And I look down and I'm like covered in blood, and it's like, oh, and then it's gone. So you have to kind of get used to that sort of thing. I did have a very unusual, this was a first time event for me, where I was doing a one-on-one reading for somebody, an in-person reading, and the spirit came through who was hearing impaired. They were pretty much at the end of their life, completely deaf. And the way that they decided to communicate this to me is I kind of have the spirit here with me, and the spirit just reaches up and puts their hands on my ears like this, and it just cuts out. And it was new and uncomfortable, but also they got their point across very well, which I always love that from spirit. So yeah, sometimes it does come with physical sensation, and it's always an interesting one to navigate.
Yeah. Interesting. I keep in interviews that I get really into, I kind of lose my place here. So forgive me in that. And we have a slight lag in here too. So if I stall for a second, that's why. But my next question was, do you have an internal monologue? Like when you're trying to work out a problem, do you talk to yourself? Do you see it physically, or like do you see like a shelf that you're trying to put together or whatever in your brain?
Yes.
Okay. I'm starting to go down this road. I've listened to some other interviews and some podcasts and stuff that it's really interesting how certain mediums and stuff either do or don't. And it's fascinating to see how that impacts, like all of a sudden, you don't have an internal monologue and now you're hearing voices in your head and you're like, well, this isn't me. Or if you do have an internal monologue and you're hearing voices, how are you distinguishing between your internal monologue and these other voices now? So how does that work with you?
That's a good question. And you're right. The mechanics seem to be different for everybody. And it's so funny when those mechanics aren't usually there and then they show up. So there's a member of my team who's a very gifted psychic, and she's also profoundly deaf. But she can hear them. She can't hear the rest of us, but she can hear the spirits. And so it's always fascinating to work with her because it comes through very clear for her. So when it comes to like, what was the second part of your question? I'm sorry, we're both just losing our train.
How do you distinguish between your inner monologue and the other voice?
Yes. So this is something that that I get a lot, especially when I'm training mediums, because they're going like, okay, well, I can imagine things in my head. So it's like my imagination, but then how do I distinguish, like, is it imagination or is it my own internal voice or is it like, and the answer is that it is still the same machinery. So people are like, how do I know it's not my imagination? It's like, it is your imagination. The question is, who's driving it? Who's operating it at that time? If you're behind it, then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to imagine this thing. I'm going to imagine that thing, or I'm going to talk about this problem to myself in my head. It's when it doesn't seem to come from you, but it's that same machinery. So spirit will utilize things that are already there. So for instance, I write fiction as well. And I went through kind of a phase where I was really worried about kind of like talking to my spirit guides, because every time I would try and talk to them, it just felt like I was writing dialogue. And my cousin, who's also very plugged in, I was kind of telling her about that and how I was kind of like worried about, like, maybe I'm making up. She's like, no, she's like, they're just using that machinery that you already have in place. She's like, just let them use that, because that's the easiest way, because all this stuff takes a lot of energy for spirit to do. So they'll take the path of least resistance. So if you're somebody who has a lot of brain chatter, that can be difficult sometimes, because 90% of mediumship is learning to step out of your own way and to quiet that so that there's room for the chatter of spirits. And so sometimes you have to learn to, especially if you have a really chattery brain. Somebody once explained it to me, like if you have like a big chalkboard and it's just full of words and writing, like where are they going to write, their messages? Like their messages might still be coming through, but it has to be really tiny. And I'm going all over the place here, but stay with me. When we do the brain scans of mediums who are doing readings, a lot of the times people expect the activity to go up really intensely, just like light up like a lighthouse, but it actually goes the opposite. So the brain waves go almost completely flat, as if though they're asleep or having a dream or daydreaming. And it's that making the room so that if you can quiet your brain and then something starts chattering in it, it's not you. So when I'm doing a reading, I often describe it as like having a daydream on command while still having a conversation with the person I'm reading for. So yeah, it takes a minute to distinguish those things a little bit, but it can be done.
No, it makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense because, you know, you're basically having to go into like this meditative state or not have to, but you go into this meditative state to kind of quiet yourself and set that so that everything that is in there is open. Do you find it's harder for people like what are the how many this is going to be really relevant when I finally spit out my question as to how I'm stating this. People with ADHD that have everything going on in their head, like I do at this very moment, do you find people like that are less likely to become mediums, or do you see that just as frequently as people that have a quieter brain to begin with? Is it hard? Obviously, it's harder for them, but do you see like a certain style of personality that becomes mediums that you're teaching and stuff like that? Take it away.
You know, it's always really surprising the people who end up being mediums, and a lot of times they're surprised themselves. So it's hard to say that there's like a specific kind of person that ends up becoming a medium. But I do think that those things can either help or hinder the process, especially if you're trying to learn. And it also depends on what kind of ADHD that you have. So for some people, they're like, oh, like I'm just really daydreaming, like automatically, like I don't pay attention to anything. I'm just like constantly just like, you know, heading off with the fairies. And that's actually very helpful because that machinery is already there. But if you're somebody who is, so something that's difficult for me is I have clinically diagnosed OCD, which ends up with a lot of chit chat, and what about this, and what about that, and what about this, and what about that, and that's very difficult when it comes to doing intentional mediumship, because you have to turn off the part of your brain that is in charge of judgment. So when we do those brain scans, the areas of the brain that are still active are the very creative parts, the very imaginative parts. And the parts of the brain that are there for judgment, analysis, fact finding, all those things, they almost completely switch off. And that's something that's very difficult for new mediums, because when they begin training, they go, okay, something popped up, and then their brain immediately attacks and goes, well, how do you know that that's true? What kind of evidence do we have for that? And then they lose the connection because that's a different part of the brain. So it can be a little bit more of a struggle depending on what your wiring is like, but that's also why when you go to do mediumship development, the first thing they tell you is you have to start meditating all the time to help you find a way to create that space for spirit.
Cool. I like to analyze that my brain is basically like, you know, the analogy of I have 50 internet tabs open on my screen, and, you know, half of them are playing videos, music's coming from somewhere. I don't know what's open, but there's just all this stuff going on in there. And I definitely see though how like your daydreamers and stuff would have a lot easier time to be able to do that, because if their brain can shut off and go to these places, it would be easier for them. Now, I don't, by any stretch of the imagination, I tell people this, I'm not a medium. I don't claim to be or anything. But one of the things that I do on some of the investigations and stuff we go on is the Estes method. So you take a spirit box, you put on noise canceling headphones, blinder, and you listen to this thing, and you hear voices and stuff in there. And I love this because it gives you that double blind of I don't know the questions, they don't know what I'm hearing, and you don't get those, well, I think it said this because I asked for a name and I got a name. So I really like the Estes method. I've talked to Christopher Fleming, and he says that he believes that the Estes method not so much is getting the information from the spirit box, but directly into the people's head, because the white noise of the spirit box is putting you into this meditative state. Now, I say this all just because for people that may not be familiar with it, to preface this. But I find, like you had said, that even with my brain trying to shut off and just listen, I try and get into that meditative state. And just like you said, I get these words that come in, and they're things that pertain to a location that we're at. I'm like, wait a minute, nope, I need to justify this. And you're 100% right that those start to come in. And I find that when I can shut that off, I start to get a lot better communication, and I get better when you watch it back, my answers and what I say and what I see, feel all work a lot better. So I really resonate with what you're saying there, and that kind of helps me justify it as well. But it very, very much is true in what we've done. So
absolutely. And it is, spirit communication requires a great deal of trust with the spirits, because it's this idea again of, as okay, I'm sitting across from this person who's probably paying me to be here. And so if I'm going to translate for you and say this thing you've just given me, it better be right. You know, otherwise I'm just going to be like, oh, they're telling me that they had a dog. And they're like, oh, they never had a dog. You know, like it's like, so you have to, there's no way to verify it. You just have to throw it out. You just have to trust that spirit is there with you. And that's part of it. Is we tend to really feel like when we do mediumship that it is all us. We put a huge amount of responsibility on us, whether we're right, whether we're connected enough, whether we're doing this. And before the day before I was set to do my first one-on-one in-person mediumship reading, which was very different for me because I grew up reading haunted houses. And that's very different from sitting across to somebody and connecting them with their grandma or whoever like who has passed over. The mechanics are very different. And so I'm like, okay, tomorrow's the big reading. I'm going to do like a lot of meditating today. And so I go into my meditation and I connect with my spirit guides and I go, okay, spirit guides, tomorrow's the day. Am I ready? And I'm waiting for them to go, yes, absolutely. And they go, no.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? And they go, and it was really fascinating because they go, you're not ready because you do not trust that we will be there for you. And you're also taking on all of the responsibility for whether or not this goes well or not. It's a group effort between the medium, the spirit guides, the spirit communicators that are coming through, and the sitter that's sitting across from you. And so not only was that really helpful to see it that way, but it was also a huge ego check that it was, oh, it's all about me. If I'm talented enough, if I'm doing it enough. And they're like, no, actually, you're like a fourth of this. Yeah. And you need to rely on us and allow us to do stuff. And so when it comes to like the brain chatter you're talking about earlier, I will some days, if I'm having a difficult time with it, I will ask my spirit guides like, hey, can you hold on to all this for me? Like, while I'm doing this, and they will. I have this little meditation where my brain's very busy with certain things that I'm worried about or something that's happening in my life or whatever. I'll put it in like this little imaginary cardboard box and I will hand it to them. And then they're like, great, cool. We'll hold on to this. We'll give it back to you when we're done. We're like, okay. So the spirits are part of it, and you have to trust them to do their part as you're doing yours. Like you're talking about with the spirit box, you hear something, you have to trust it and throw it out there. Maybe you're wrong, maybe you're not. It's trust.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's spot on. I yeah, very well said. Like you said, it's not you. It's the spirit on the other side communicating with their loved one, and your spirit guides helping you with it. And all you are is repeating what's coming through. It's the same as the spirit box. The spirit box is talking to you, and you're just repeating it. You're just that conduit to initiate that contact. So absolutely. Fascinating. We have spent 30 minutes on just this, and I have so much more that we want to cover. So I want to talk to you about the interesting fact here. I want to talk about your first book here. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This is the first book that you put out, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, modern Mexican American folk magic, and this is fascinating because Western society sucks. We are so plain. So, tell me I'm wrong. Like, we are so plain. Our vision of death and afterlife is so cut and dry and just terrible. When you look at the cultures from all over the world, including Mexican cultures, there's so much more rich diversity and lore. And when your loved one passes away, it's not like, okay, the funeral's the end. No, every year you celebrate that, you bring it back. There's a culture that lives with the person's body for a year in their home. They feed it every day, they wash it, they change the clothes after they've passed away, just the shell, until they finally have a whole procession and they move it through town. And so, but anyway, I am really interested in some of your thoughts and opinions on the Mexican culture and folk magic and anything that you want to talk about this, because I think that this is really a rich culture that needs to be talked more about. And I haven't had anybody on my show to talk about. So there you go.
Absolutely. And it's so funny that you talk about that, like, the cultures where, they hang out with the body for like a full year, and, like you're talking about, they bathe it and they clothe it and they do all this stuff, which in those cultures is very reverent, is very meaningful, is very touching. In the United States, though, that's an episode of Criminal Minds. And so it's how we view it and what it does for us emotionally and spiritually is very different from culture to culture. And I find that when it comes to Mexican culture as well, where in Mexico, magic and spirits and things like that are very much alive. They're very much alive, and people believe in them there. And I think that shifts something to have a group of people all on one landmass that collectively have an openness and an agreement that these things are real. I think in a way makes them real. And for this book, I did a great deal of interviews speaking with people who either are people like me who are several generations removed, or people who are first generation, also people who grew up in Mexico. I spoke with a lot of these folks, and so many of them had really visceral magical experiences where people would tell me things like I saw a woman fly once. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, tell me about that. Like, I need more details on that. And they're like, no, I was there and I saw her lift off the ground, like full on flying. And then I have seen, had other people's in my interview who would say things like, one of my favorite stories was a guy who told me that they were running from the police, and an apparition of the Virgin of Guadalupe gave them directions on where to go and where to not go. Things like that. The number of people who had run-ins with either spirits like La Llorona or El Cucuy, these kind of sort of spirits, or El Cucuy is a little bit more like a cryptid. And a lot of them had these stories of being like, yeah, no, I straight up saw that. It wasn't even a question. It was, no, that was extremely real. And so there's something about communities that still believe where it shifts something. It does something. That belief and that agreement allows it to still be very viscerally real in their worlds. And I'm fascinated by that. And we still find that so the book was specifically about Mexican-American population, which is this weird island unto itself where they're no longer like Mexican, and they're really not American. And so anytime you have this sort of isolated community, there's going to be a very specific culture, a very specific way of doing things. And they sort of carried that belief still into this sort of more quote unquote modern, United States. We don't believe in much except for Republican Jesus up here, but there's so they were able to bring it in and keep it alive with them here on this side of the border, which is fascinating for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so interesting to look at these different cultures, like I said, I do cryptids and stuff all over the world. Mm-hmm. And you go to these different places and, you're talking about the spiritual and the spirit side of this as well. And that's 100% true, but they take these legends, creatures, mythologies and stuff. And it's not, for instance, Bigfoot, right? Oh, well, it's this creature that may exist. Some people have seen it. They're crazy. I don't know if it's real or not. And then you look at other places around the world where you have like the Yeti or the Yaren and, you know, stuff like that. And they're like, it's real, 100%. We've seen it. It's not even a question. It's not even a question. Like La Llorona and, you know, some of the other spirit entities and stuff that you talk about. It's not a ghost story. It's not folklore. It's a tale. It's true. This thing is something that is going to come and get you in the night if you misbehave. And you see that all over the world in these other cultures. And I say other cultures because I'm a white male. So I'm pretty plain basic. You know, I drink pumpkin spice lattes every October. So that's where I'm at.
But, I love my PSL, I won't lie.
But I wish that I had that. I wish I had that cultural background to believe in something more than just, you know, a Bigfoot, you know. And it's so fascinating because my favorite cryptid is El Chupacabra. And I feel so bad because I've worked with Ken Gerhard, who is a renowned cryptozoologist down in Texas, and he's done a lot of work with the Chupacabra. And he says that in Puerto Rico and stuff, this thing has gone from a flesh and blood livestock killer to the boogeyman. And everything from cupboards opening in your night to weird sounds to any boogeyman type thing that's going on it's El Chupacabra, because that's stuff. It's merged into this, and I don't know. It's still real though, and that's what's fascinating about it, is they still believe in it 100%. It is a creature, but it's gone from that flesh and blood or alien, whatever you want, into this mythology and this whole thing that they believe in now. So
yes, things tend to be very fluid in that way, where, you know, we can take parts of over here, parts of the story, and then it's okay to adapt it. It's okay to let it sort of grow into whatever it's going to be. So for instance, a great deal of particularly Mexican spirituality is based around Catholicism. It's saints, it's all that stuff that are brought into it. But when we talk about the sort of folk Catholicism that happens, what the people of Mexico has done with this sort of colonizers book that's come in and their religion and is very different than the actual institution of Catholicism, like quote unquote the church. It's very different because they never quite got rid of their old beliefs. They just brought them in with the new beliefs and then just mixed them all around real good. And I love seeing what these populations do with Christianity as it comes in, and they're like, okay, cool, but we're going to like season it and then turn it into something else. And I think that that's something that really needs to be held sacred. And a lot of times people just see the Christian imagery and then just like immediately throw it in the trash because they're like, oh, well, I don't believe in that. Oh, that's colonizer. And it's like, no, this is part of Mexican culture. In fact, the number of people that badly reviewed my book or credited me with bringing Catholicism to Mexico was
congratulations. How's that feel?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was on me. But that stuff is very real, very fluid. All that stuff is open to. It's all made to fit the community, and if it's not working for the community, then it gets changed and fits the community more. And I like that approach more than the community needs to now wrap around and fit this religion or this spiritual belief or this cryptid lore. They make it fit them, and I'm all for it.
Well, you see that when like you said, the colonizers come in and stuff like that back in Europe, and that they came in and they wiped out all of it's gone now. Your paganism. And they took all the pagan holidays and they said, well, these are Christian now. And this is what it is. And they said, well, you can still, practice the solstice and all that, but we're going to call it Christmas. And, now it's the Lord's birthday and you can still celebrate it, but we want you to add this. And that's kind of like the opposite of what you're saying is they took it and they added their own. These guys are just like, we're going to take your stuff and tell you it's our stuff and repackage it that way. And it just kind of flips the switch there with that.
It really does. And Mexico just cannot be tamed. And a lot of Latin America is very much like this, where like, for instance, the idea of saints came in and they're like, okay, here's how saints work. And so the Mexican population is like, Okay, great. We have a few of those. So, Juan Soldado, Soldier John over here, died, and he's been helping people. So he's a saint now, and the Catholic Church is like, wait, no, we didn't okay that. They're like, we don't care. And this one over here is now a saint, and like, they have this whole list of saints that are not approved by the church, but they are approved by the people. And so they just take it and run with it, and I love that for them. I love that.
This reminds me of I don't know if have you ever seen the musical Book of Mormon?
I haven't, but I know what it is.
Okay, and they go over to Africa, and they're trying to get these tribe to convert, and the one kid's like just starts making stuff up about Boba Fett from Star Wars comes down and all this stuff, and they're like, oh, it's our great savior, Boba Fett, and all this stuff. And he rewrites the whole Book of Mormon so that they'll believe it. And it just kind of fell with that. It's like, yeah, okay, well, you don't believe what we got. But yeah, if this happens and the Starship Enterprise comes down and they're like, oh, it's so great. And then the head of the Mormons comes over to check on them, and they're like, oh, we're going to give you this presentation. And the tribe does this whole presentation that's Star Wars and Star Trek and hobbits and all this stuff. And they're like, that has nothing to do with, no, this is wrong. What have you done? And they're like, well, this is our book now. And they rewrite a whole nother book. So
that is hilarious.
Yeah, it's a great musical.
Just let it be what it needs to be. If the people like it, great, run with it.
Yeah,
everyone's happy.
Well, now that we've derailed and gone off on a totally different track over here, is there anything else that you'd like to add on the Mexican American book?
Not necessarily. It was a really wonderful project because I kind of talk about this on the first page that I kind of set out to really write it from specifically my perspective. But through doing all of these interviews, so much of what's in it is actually community created, which was really special for me. It actually turned into a way better book than I thought it was going to be honest. And that's thanks to all of them, my friends and family and coworkers and people who contributed to it. It was really special.
It's very cool. I think I don't know if I told you this on there or not, but I've never had anybody on my shows. I've had Native American come on and stuff, but I've never gotten a chance to talk to anybody that has that Mexican culture side to it. So I'm really excited to bring that to the show finally in that here. So, but you just released a brand new book this past, was it September or December? Just came out either way.
I think it was September. I think it was a couple years ago. I have lost all track of time. So it could have been yesterday. It could have been.
I was going to say it's recent because, like I said, I look for like the new releases on Amazon. So I thought it was this past year. Maybe I'm wrong. You wrote it.
It was. I'm not sure. I do know that Paranormal Underground just reviewed it, and my editor sent it to me with the note that just said "better late than never." So it's been some time.
Okay. Well, it's your newest book. We'll say that. There you go. All right. So The Witch's Guide to the Paranormal. And this is interesting. Again, another unique topic that I haven't gotten a chance to cover on the show, because this is like the witchcraft side of paranormal investigating and stuff. And it's a totally different take on this. So walk us through the book. What is this about, and where did it come from?
So I sort of wrote this book out of spite and or anger, which is an excellent motivator for any sort of creative project. So I belong to a very unique team in the Portland metro area. And even before I met them, my number one goal with paranormal investigation was always to see what I could do to help, see what I could do to fix it. And so even like in high school, my mom was dropping me off at people's houses or businesses so I could go talk to the spirits inside and see what I could do to fix it. And that was always instilled in me, that we're here to help. And then I joined my group in Portland that had that same value. And my group is unique in the way that about 80% of the team is psychics. Usually you have investigators and you have one, maybe two psychics that sort of join or occasionally attend, but we're mostly psychics, and we're focused specifically on what we call paranormal resolution, which is fixing the problem. And we've gotten this down to a science because we used to spend quite a bit of time at places, and sometimes it would drag on because, you know, when people suddenly have the ability to speak to somebody about what they've been through, you can be there for 6 hours just talking with them. So we actually had to cap it at, okay, we get in, get out, fix the haunting, 4 hours or less, and have been fairly successful with that. And what sort of brought me to the book was after I kind of became known on social media and people were finding me, I was getting a lot of contacts from people who were like, hey, I live, you know, in Wisconsin, or, you know, somewhere real far away from me that I couldn't get to. And they're like, and I'm experiencing this kind of activity, you know, can you help me? And at that time, I had no concept of how to do it from a distance. We figured it out during COVID, but at that time, I'm like, well, I can't get to you. There's no way I can get to, you know, New England or whatever tomorrow to help. So what I would do is I would look up their local paranormal investigation team, call them, thinking, of course they'll know how to help, because that's all I had really known. And if I got any response at all from the teams, 99% of the time, the response was, we can't do anything to help, but we'd love to come and take pictures.
Yeah.
And with the things that people were describing to me, they needed help. These were people who were all sleeping together in the living room, which is something that you get used to seeing doing paranormal investigation, is that they're all sleeping together in the living room because safety in numbers, are all really afraid. And so the last thing these people needed was for somebody to go on safari in their house. They needed like actual help. And I began to realize how unusual it was that both me and my team were interested in fixing what was going on and not just documenting. And I'm not against the documentation portion, but I think we need to come to terms with the fact that we're not going to catch something that's going to change everybody's mind and prove that ghosts are real and that there's life after death. We're never going to get that. And so I would like the community to pivot more towards, okay, how can we help? And so this book ended up becoming my field guide that I was writing for other people to then do what I do, which is go out, diagnose what kind of haunting you're dealing with. So I tackle the 4 types of haunting. So you have a residual haunting, earthbound human spirits, poltergeist, and then inhuman spirit entity. And I go through all 4. Talk about how to identify them, how to deal with each of them, because they need to be dealt with in different ways. So you can't exorcise a poltergeist. A poltergeist is not an active spirit. It's an energy that somebody is putting off in the home. So the haunting is coming from within, the call is coming from inside the house a little bit in that one. So usually therapy is needed for a poltergeist situation, as opposed to an exorcism or opening the light or, you know, things like that. So I go through all that information in the book. I also go through information about how to do paranormal investigation, how to set up a team, what is an EVP. I go over a lot of vocabulary in it as well. And so it's I try to make it kind of a one-stop, well-rounded field guide that people can read through, hear some of my stories, but mostly have it be a how-to that they can then take with them. And when they're out there, kind of go, okay, okay, poltergeist, here we go. And then go from there. So that was kind of the idea. And I brought in a lot of witchcraft techniques for cleansing and clearing and spirit communication and all of that into it, which is also a little bit unusual. So.
No, I love that. Here's where I'm at with this. 100%. This is where our team is as well, because, you know, like we used to, when I first started CAPS, we didn't have any mediums on the team. We just did out paranormal investigating. That's how we were. You know, there are uncredible mediums out there and stuff, and you want to vet who you're working with and stuff as well. And we are very fortunate to have an amazing team of mediums on my team. And I believe 100% they're fabulous people. So this sounds weird, but it took the fun out of paranormal investigating. Like when you go to somebody's house and you have good mediums, you walk in and you say, what's going on? And they wait in the car, and the people take you around and say, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. All right, good. And then we go out and get the mediums, and they go, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, and this is why. And it's been 10 minutes, and we're like, we drove 3 hours here for you to go, yep, and this is why. And they have abilities, they need training, we're done here. All right, have a good day. And it takes the fun out of it, because when you're helping people, I mean, that's what you're there for, you know. But we're used to doing these investigations for 4 to 8 hours. You sit there and hope that a light lights up and all this stuff, and you hope that you get an answer. And now you have this quality team that just comes in and goes, this is what it is, we're done. And it is so amazing, because like, I absolutely love doing this, because like I said, I'm not a medium by any means. And I walk in and I hear, okay, this is bothering you. You saw a face in the closet. It was a little girl. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then my mediums come in and they go, I see a little girl in the closet, and somebody's seeing them like when they're going to bed, and it's bothering them. And I'm like, yeah, yep. Okay. Now what do we do about that? Well, they're, you know, this person, they just want, you know, to play. They want to be acknowledged. Okay, cool. You know, but here's the thing is, at that point, then when you get to these, this is what's going on. This is what you need to do. You have abilities. You're seeing these things. They're coming to you because they know you can see them. They want to communicate. You're not communicating with them. Right. How many times have you dealt with this? Okay. So now we get to the point of, you tell people that and they go, oh, well, can't you just exercise it and get it out of here? It's not that simple. It's you, and you need training. And now we've gotten to the point, we just launched it this year. And I'm want to talk to you after the show about this as well, because you're fabulous. Like I really love all your ideas and what you're talking about and stuff. We have a trusted affiliates program. And these are people who train people in the, abilities and teach them how to control it and either block it out or whatever. And you seem to have a very well grasp on this. It sounds like this is something that you do. And I would love to have you submit information and stuff to this for us to add you to our contact list of these people. And obviously we tell them they have to pay, they have to train and stuff. But this is an amazing program that we've launched this year for people all over the United States, because like I said, I travel to all different states and stuff for conventions and that, and people always come up to us and ask us for help. And I'm like, well, hey, I can't, I'm not from here. I have my own stuff to do, but here's somebody in your area. And it's absolutely amazing. And I'm glad that you're also doing this and able to reach out to these people, because 9 times out of 10, this is what's going on. And it's not, there's been, you know, like, I never want to say demons and stuff, but we have run into, I think, 2 cases now where there's some dark spirit there that's probably not a person that's doing stuff. And, you know, I still don't, you know, I don't want to say it's a demon or anything, you know, it's so stereotypical, but something there that isn't, you know, your grandma trying to get attention. And, you know, there are times when we have to work with that as well. But, you know, 9 times out of 10, it's just spirits see that you have an ability and want to communicate. And now you're a conduit. So,
well, and it's amazing. You're right. How often that comes up in particular, that the answer is your home isn't haunted, you're psychic. And so we have it. We now bring materials with us to leave with them. Like, so you're psychic. What do we do now? Here's how to do some shielding. Here's that. So we come with literature now. Because it is so common. And it's so funny because you go, okay, so is this the first haunted house you lived in? They're like, no, now that I think about it, every house I've ever lived in has been haunted. It's like, I wonder what the common factor is. So yeah, absolutely. And you're so spot on with this idea too, that you're right, that having gifted mediums really does suck the fun out of it, the mystery out of it. And there's sort of like 2 things that I connect with that. Number one is, they used to have it on Netflix, and I think they've taken it off. It was a show called Rescue Mediums.
Yep.
And it's these 2 older British ladies who are psychics, who are mediums, and they come into houses and they fix it. And it only went on for like, I think 2 seasons, or like 2 short seasons, because the whole show is them standing together in a corner going, okay, now we visualize the light. And now she's running towards the light. And like, that's pretty much like the entirety of the whole thing. But it's also very real. It's very honest. But we did have, there is a animal communicator, a pet psychic in the Pacific Northwest who is incredibly talented. Her name is Karen Anderson. And I got this notice that she was being added to our team. And like, I know Karen, I love Karen. Karen's great. But I'm like, why are we adding a pet psychic onto our paranormal team? And I was incredibly skeptical. And we do this thing called pre-impressions, where we'll either get like a photo of the house or just kind of like a name or something like that. And all the psychics away from each other at their own homes, you know, give their impression, and we all send them into our case manager, who's the only one that sees all of them before we go there. Karen nailed every single detail of what was going on in the house, how many members of the family they were. You know, there's these parents and there's this number of children. They're experiencing this kind of activity, and this, and each of them are. She talked to the family dog from like 100 miles away, and the family dog gave her every detail. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
Wow.
And it's I'm obsessed with that stuff. I really am.
We have Ellie Weisensell on our team. She's absolutely fabulous, and she focuses on animal energies and spirits as well. So she's also our cleaner. She goes in and kicks things out. So she does a wonderful job with that. But you know, it's like people don't understand, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this as well. We don't have to go to the house. You know, like, you can clear it from a distance. People don't understand that. They don't trust it. So we still have to go there and ease their mind. But the thing is even if we, you know, have Ellie and Stephanie Lynn is our other medium that we use for a lot of this stuff as well. And they clean the space, and that is a Band-Aid, because, okay, you've pushed out what's there now, but you're still glowing like a freaking, you know, spotlight to whatever's out there, and it's going to come back. It's going to give you that little bit of respite to go, I can sleep a full night. I can get myself back. I can, you know, focus on my job and my work or school or whatever it is, and put yourself together again. But a week down the road, a month down the road, 6 months down the road, it's all going to come back, and it's going to be all new, and you're going to start all over. So what do you do in those situations? How do you convey to them that they need more than just sage and, you know, good vibes?
Yeah. I have a whole sort of after we leave spiel that I give to people, because so what I do on the team is I'm also kind of a resident, if you will, cleaner. I'm the one who deals with negative entity removal. And so they're kind of like, you know, oh, we feel like Satan's probably in the basement. We're going to send Josh in. And I'm like, cool, I got you. And I cover that in the book as well, if people are interested in doing that kind of work. But these things, especially the negative entities, will attempt to come back, just because that's their personality. As soon as we leave, they're like, great, they're gone. We're going to try and come back. And so I have to explain to people kind of where their head's at is going to really dictate how quickly this comes back. Because if we leave and they start going, well, what if it comes back? Is it going to come back? Is that it over there? Is that it over here? Then they're creating this agreement with it that it definitely can come back, and it is coming back, and it's happening, and all that stuff. So a lot of that is what they're sort of unintentionally inviting in. There is also times where they are intentionally inviting it in. So we went and cleared this house for a man who was so excited to tell us about what he referred to as my demon, that he had pictures of and all this stuff. And like, it was like the coolest thing you'd ever seen. And oh yeah, no, it came back immediately after we left. And I actually ran into him years later. He was standing in front of me in line at a paranormal conference showing somebody pictures of his demon. And I'm like, oh my God. So sometimes it's intentional. We've also had there was a bar in Portland that we had been working on for the better part of 2 years, trying to get it to stop being super haunted. And part of it was built on top of, in downtown Portland, they have Shanghai tunnels. And so it was built on top of that, but they also really love to book like metal bands that would occasionally do like actual like sacrifice of like chickens and stuff on stage to Satan. And like, to each their own, but if you want a place that's not like super haunted, maybe don't have, occult sacrifices to Satan on stage. Maybe, I don't know. It could be part of the problem. So you do have to do some counseling with them about like where their mental state is with it, where their head's at with it, and also their behavior with it as well. But especially if it's that they are psychic, it's encouraging them to get training, but also if they're not going to do the training, to try and teach them sort of what I call the steely paranormal investigator calm, which is where you're just not at all fazed by it. And so that instead of them hearing sort of like a bump in the night and going, oh my gosh, what is it? Is it here? It's coming to get me. It's doing that. Instead of just kind of going like, no, and going back to sleep, which sometimes is all it needs, is just to not at all feed it. So if they're not going to get the training, but they can at least just starve it to death, whatever it is that's trying to show back up, sometimes that can be helpful. It depends on how intensely in tune that they are and in what kinds of ways. Because sometimes people are like, oh, I just hear some noises occasionally. Other people are like, no, this thing's trying to speak through me. So it kind of depends on where they're at on the spectrum with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very good. Very good, man. I could talk to you all day. You're an amazing, just everything is very clear and concise. I really appreciate that. And you're very articulate in everything that we've talked about. It's very, very well done. I appreciate it.
Oh, good. Thank you. I've been worried that my coffee's been kicking in and I've just been rambling at you. All weird.
No, like I said, my Mountain Dew has kicked in here, and this is recorded late enough in the day that I'm actually awake, where usually I'm sleeping through my shows. So it's been absolutely a blast, man. Well, anyway, like I said in the beginning of the show, we are pre-recorded today. So if you guys have any questions and stuff, you said that you're well interested in taking the questions and comments, just your work schedule and stuff, we can't do it. So you're going to get a link to the YouTube video stream of this when this airs. And if you guys have any questions, throw them in the comments on the YouTube channel, and J. Allen Cross is going to get the link to that, and he can go in and answer them all for you. So if you guys have any questions, reach out that way as well throughout the show. So anything that we may have missed, super interesting stuff here. Do you have any events or anything coming up? Any new books coming out, or anything else that you want to talk about or promote or anything?
I am working on new writing projects. Nothing that's complete enough to anywhere talk about, but it is coming. I am also, of course, it is starting to become Paranormal Con season. So I noticed you had a whole list of them there at the beginning. I will be teaching at Oregon Ghost Conference. It's held every spring, late March in Seaside, Oregon, on the coast. So I attend and teach pretty much every year. So this year I will be teaching a 2-hour class called The Art of Deliverance. And I will then be hosting a event called Witches and Wine, which will be at the Starry Night Inn there in Seaside, which will be fun. We'll get together, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a witch's hat full of questions, and everyone gets the chance to either ask me a question or face a mystery question inside the hat that they have to answer. So it's going to be a good time.
Sounds like it, man. Awesome. Well, I look forward to all the stuff coming for you, man. This is great. I want to remind everyone, the Witch's Guide to Paranormal is available now on Amazon and wherever you get books. The links for that are in the show notes. Your Instagram page is in the show notes, as well as your link tree, which has links to actually book readings and teachings and stuff with you as well. So that's all available through the link tree. What all can people get from you through that? Like what service?
So I offer a lot of different things. Like I'll do some spell work. I'm not focusing too much on that these days, but I really love doing what is labeled in my offerings as spiritual coaching, where people can sit down with me for either 30 minutes or an hour. We can talk about what's going on with them, what they want to learn, and we can just chat, and I can try and provide with them as much information as I can. I do occasionally take on clients that I mentor, things like that. So feel free to reach out to me. And I also do consulting for groups as well. So if somebody out there has a paranormal team and they either have a case that they just is a big head scratcher, or they want further training in kind of what it is that I do, I'm happy to meet with them, do that work as well. So
very cool. And that is all through your link tree, and it is in the show notes for anybody that's listening. You can go check that out right there. It's easy for you to click on and check out. So awesome. I can't say enough, man. Thank you so much for your time today. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. There's so much great information. It's been an absolute great conversation.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on today, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hang tight. I'm going to wrap this stuff up here, and I have a couple things right after I'll get to you. So I will talk to you in a bit. Take care, man. All right, guys, that is our show for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you check out J. Allen Cross's books. You can get them online, and check out the show notes. If you're interested in learning more about your abilities or something, reach out to him. He seems like a wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure that he can help you out with that. So awesome, guys. Until next time, remember, we're all part of the paranormal spectrum. Stay safe, be well, and I'll see you next week.